So I thought that we would do something a little different and make a video kind of showing and talking about how I came to own a couple of these cars, because two of them are somewhat interesting. But this would be one of them. Was a 1996 Mitsubishi Eclipse GST. I bought it as it was getting ready to be loaded up and took to the scrapyard. The way that I ended up getting it was I drove my red car to Walmart one day. Simple as that. And I was in the crosswalk by the doors, and this older, kind of sketchy looking guy walks straight up to my vehicle, to my window, and says, "Hey, do you want another one of these cars? I know where one's at." And normally, there's not a lot of these vehicles around here. Normally when people say they have one of these vehicles, it is not what it is. It's either a third generation Eclipse, or it'll be a 2G that is half of the parts are missing. Somebody took it apart 42 years ago. Half of the stuff's missing, or it's never what it actually is. And I asked him if it was just like my other 2G. He says yes, but it's a convertible. So immediately I'm thinking it's a non-turbo single cam. He already told me it didn't run. I figured it was tore apart in 52 million pieces. But he said they were fixing to scrap it, and told me he would sell it to me for scrap price. So I told him that I would come look at it, check it out, whatever, see what it was. It was about 45 minutes away from us. And so I get his number, and I text him a couple days later, "Hey, when you want me to come look at that car?" And it gets kind of complicated from here. He said, "Well, it's not my car." I said, "But you told me you were selling it." He goes, "Well, it's my buddy's car, but my buddy doesn't like giving out his address, and the car's at his house." And it just got really weird. I've never talked to the guy that actually owns the car at this point. Just as his buddy that is selling his friend's car, supposedly. So I say, "Okay, well, when can I come look at it?" "Well, I'll have to figure out if he wants me to tell you, give out his address, stuff like that. Give me a couple days, let me talk to him." All right, fine. A couple days go by. He says, "Hey," he texts me, he goes, "Hey, if you want to come look at that car this weekend, we can go look at it or whatever." I was like, "Well, I'll probably just ride up there and look at it." He was like, he said, "Well, it's fine. I'll have to meet you up there." I was like, "Okay." He said, "Because he don't want to give his address out." It's like, all right. This guy I've talked to for maybe 10 minutes that day at Walmart. Don't know him whatsoever. So we set a day to go look at it, and time that rolls around, and I tell him, "Hey, I'm getting ready to head that way, but I kind of got to know where I'm going." And he says, "Well, I'll meet you in town. You can leave your car, get in the truck with me, and I'll take you to the car and let you look at it, and then I'll bring you home." Dude will not even tell me where we're going. I just know it's about 45 minutes away. And I said, yeah, I'm not real sure about all that. So I call a buddy of mine and I said, hey, would you want to ride with me about 45 minutes away to look at this car I might buy? So the guy's being kind of weird about it and all that. Yeah, no problem. So he comes over here and I text the guy again. Hey, I'm just gonna head up there. Just tell me what time to meet you there and where I'm going. I'll meet you there. And he was, again, adamant on me leaving my car, getting in his truck with him by myself, riding with him to a place I don't even know I'm going, with a person I don't even know who it's with. And so the guy that was going with me, I tell him, I said, hey, here's what we're gonna do. We know what town it's in. I said, me and you are gonna get in the car, head that way, and I'm gonna tell him, look, I ended up having to come up here anyway for some other stuff. We'll meet you up here where you at. And he'll either tell us or he won't. If he don't, we'll turn around and come home. It's like, all right, cool. So we get on the road, get probably 20 minutes away, and I text him, I'm like, hey, something come up and I ended up having to come up here anyway. So just give me about 20 minutes, but just tell me where to go and we'll meet you there because I'm up here anyway. And he finally tells me the guy's address. So we go and look at it. We get there, it's kind of a sketchy sort of looking place, and it's already a weird deal anyway. And I finally get to talk to the guy that actually owns this car that I'm coming to look at to buy, that his buddy is selling for him, supposedly. And he comes out there, we're looking at the car, and it ends up being a turbo car. It's all complete, but he tells me it doesn't run. The windows don't work. They had left it sitting outside with the windows down for like 2 years at this point, in the rain and everything else. The interior was trash. It still is, but it's clean at least. Doesn't run, has all that. Nothing works. I think he said the motor was locked up, the clutch was out, all kinds of things. The car was garbage basically, and he was fixing to scrap it. But I looked at it, it was all complete, and it didn't look like anybody had been messing with it. And then I looked at the mileage. According to the odometer, the car has, I think it had like 198,000 miles at the time when I bought it. Now it has like 213 or 14, I think, something like that. So I'm thinking, it's got a lot of miles on it. These turbo cars don't normally make it that long unless they've been taken care of, and this had not been taken care of for the last couple of years at least. Paint was peeling off of it. It had some surface rust around the windshield post, and like I said, the interior it looked like a swamp. It was pretty neglected, so I'm thinking, all right, it's got a lot of problems. But he only wanted $500 for it. I know from experience, parting these turbo cars out, even with it being front wheel drive and not having any kind of performance parts on it, if I would have been able to salvage either the engine or the transmission alone and prove that it was good, that would make me money off of this car. And then I could scrap the rest, make another couple $100. So I'm looking at it, and this whole time this guy's adamant about he has the title, It's a clean title. There's nothing wrong with the car. He tells me this like 52 times. And turns out it was not even his car. It was his son's car, who had went to college. He drove the car around. The car broke down. They said the engine was locked up. The car sat in their driveway for 2.5 years with the windows down and all that. But it was actually his son's car. So this is the third person or second person that I've talked to buy this car, and neither one of them even own this car. So it's a little weird. But supposedly it's his son's car. His son doesn't live here anymore. His son doesn't want the car. He doesn't want to deal with getting rid of the car. He wants to pretend it never existed. So his dad was going to scrap it. But he tells me that he has the title at his house. His son signed it and everything when the car locked up. Evidently they've been trying to get rid of it for a while, and for whatever reason couldn't find anybody that wanted it for $500, which blows my mind. But anyway, made it sound as if all I had to do was sign the title, car's mine, give him the money, good to go. Okay, so I tell him, we drove up there in my other built turbo Eclipse. We had no way of getting the car back home that day. I didn't even take any money with me that day because of how weird things were feeling. So I tell him, I was like, well, we're gonna look at it and see what happens. I said, we're interested in it. I want it. Can you give me, because the house this guy was renting, his landlord was the one pushing for him to get this car out of there, or he was gonna be evicted, is what I was told. And I said, well, can you give me 2 or 3 days to get help hauling it home? Because I don't have a truck, I don't have a trailer. He says, yeah, that's fine. So a couple days go by, my dad, I get him to go up there with me one evening after work, after we both got off work, and takes his truck and his trailer. We get up there. I've been talking to the guy this whole time. Everything's good. Get up there, get the car, go to push the car, and realize the car acts like it's stuck in gear. Okay, make sure the car is not in gear. Still acts like it's in gear. Okay, so we check the linkage to make sure it's in neutral and not in gear, and the shifter's just wonky because they had put a weird aftermarket shifter in it. I figured that was messed up. Still didn't want to roll, even though we knew for a fact the car was in neutral. So we push it a little harder. Transmission makes a god-awful clunking noise. This is not running, this is just pushing it. And then the car seemingly rolls like normal. So I start thinking, okay, there's something wrong transmission-wise. Something is bound up, something's come apart, clutch come apart, something like that. CV axle broke and wedged into something. Something is preventing gears and wheels and axles from moving. So we get it rolled up on the trailer, and it had 2 Fast and Furious style front and back bumper on it that were awful. But luckily he had the OEM bumpers. This is when it was an Eclipse, not a Talon, but he had the OEM 2GA Eclipse bumpers that come off of the car in his garage. And I asked him about them. He said, yeah, I've got them. He said, I'll throw them in for $100. I said, all right, I'll give you $600 for all of it. And he said, all right, cool. This was before I had thought about converting this over to a Talon. My plan was to put it back as stock as I could, body-wise, lower it, wheels, tires, drive it. Nothing else at the time. If we could even get it running. Well, then the guy, after we get all this loaded up, the guy says, hey, I don't have that title. I said, what do you mean you don't have that title? And my dad says, well, we'll just unload this thing right here, right now, and we'll just go back home and blah, 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 blah. And I told him, he was like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, just chill out. I said, even if this doesn't work out with the title and I can't register it or anything, I can part this car out and make some money. So take a gamble on it without the title, see what happens. The guy says, I can get you the title. He said, I'm off work tomorrow. He said, I'll drive to Nashville, apply for a lost title. I should have it that day, and I can bring it to you where you live, which was 45 minutes away from where we got the car, roughly. And Nashville is about an hour and a half away from where I live. So this guy's willing to go on his off day, drive further away from me, get said title, get it all straightened out, bring it to me, and then I sign the title. It's good to go. We're good. He swore up and down it was a clean, clear title. There was nothing, no theft, no accidents, no rebuilt title, no liens, nothing like that. So I said, all right, I'll tell you what, I will go ahead and get the car. I'll go ahead and pay you. You get the title, bring it to me. We'll be good. I assumed I would never hear nothing else from him because I gave him his money at this point. The car was out of his hair. He had nothing else to worry about. I figured we would bring the car home, unload it. I would try to make it run to see what I could sell off of it, and then end up doing a full part out, scrapping the shell. So we bring it home, and I let it sit outside with the top down, windows down, everything for, it didn't rain for a couple days after that, and I let it sit out there a couple days and just air out because it was so bad you could not be in it. Like there was stuff growing out of the carpets. It was bad. Let it air out. Make sure there's nothing in it that I don't want to bring into my shop. Get it in here, and I start pulling, getting all the water, stuff like that out of the floorboards. And then I start doing all that, that had like food in it, all kinds of just nasty stuff. Get all that out of there first. Well, then I hook it up to the battery charger. Battery acts like it's charging. It's a good sign. Put the key in, turn it over to accessory. Everything seems to work in the car. The windows there was nothing wrong with the windows. The battery was just dead. Windows all rolled up. The quarter glasses even rolled up. The only thing that didn't work was the automatic top, which that's fine. I can live with that. So good news. Let it charge for a while. Try to turn it over, won't turn over. Won't do anything. Come to find out, one of the battery terminals had a split in it. It wasn't cracked, it wasn't falling apart, it just had a split and was causing it to not connect. So sorted that out. Car turns over. Okay, it doesn't really want to run, but it turns over. And I'm thinking it had half a tank of gas in it, I think. And I'm thinking it's been sitting here for 2.5 years. It's a turbo car. They're finicky anyway. This gas is probably garbage. So I put some fuel treatment stuff in it. Fill the tank the rest of the way with fresh gas, and just keep trying. Eventually, it starts, and it runs horrible. Sounds like it's got a miss. It smoked like a freight train, but it ran, and it warmed up like it should. It didn't overheat. It ran. You give it throttle, it revved. It just was not happy. So still go to put it in gear and try to move the car. Motor didn't have any weird noises or nothing like that. We did a compression test on it. It was, I want to say it was like 160 something across all 4 cylinders. So that's completely acceptable for a car with 200,000 miles on it that's not ran in 2.5 years or 2 years, whatever it had been. So I was happy with that. Thought the motor was good. The oil in it was clean. Changed the oil in it. It was just old. There was no metal in it. Nothing crazy. So we're thinking the motor's good. The lifters ticked a little bit, but that's common on these. Didn't really worry about that. And let it run. Like I said, we got to put it in gear. Move the car. It had no first gear. Okay. Second gear. No second gear. Third gear, it finally moves forward a little bit. And then it makes the same awful crunch noise. And then it moves forward some more. So I'm thinking, okay, this is definitely transmission problem, something in there, not motor. And I moved it around like that for a couple days because I knew where I could get a transmission that I had actually put together and sold in another car I used to have to a buddy, and he ended up parting that car out, and I knew he still had that transmission, and it was a front-wheel drive turbo 5-speed transmission. Exactly what I needed. And I knew what was in it, and I knew it should be good. I think it had like 102,000 miles on it, so it wasn't like new, but it's fine. So I was just going to replace the entire transmission, put a clutch in it, flywheel, throw out bearing, clutch fork, stuff like that, be done with it. So I didn't really care if I damaged it further. Well, by like the next week, it had 0 forward gears at all. First, third went out, then fourth went, and then fifth went. And you could not even lug the car forward in like fourth or fifth gear. It had 0 forward gears. Reverse still worked, but that was it. So I get a hold of him, and he agrees to sell me the transmission back for, I think it was like $600. Basically what he had bought it from me for. And I had to go pick it up. It was about an hour away. I had to help him pull it out too. That was part of the deal. So I go up there, get my money, go up there. We pull it out of that car that I had put it into before I sold it to him. Get it loaded on the truck. And it had a ACT 20, I think it was a 2300 clutch kit in it, a ACT lightweight flywheel, a comp clutch, forged clutch fork, OEM, throw out bearing and clip, stuff like that. That was about it. And I knew that would be completely overkill for a bone stock car, but I knew they were good parts and I knew it would work. So the clutch was a little questionable, but I had another ACT 2600 clutch kit here that come out of my red car when I went to a South Bend clutch in it. So it was a little wore, but it wasn't really bad. So we get everything out, get it loaded in the truck. I get back here, figure out what parts I'm going to use, and I start tearing into this car. We get the transmission pulled out in like one day. It's not, I've messed with these for like 10 years. I'm not an expert, but it's not that hard. Get it pulled out. And when we go to drain the fluid in it, it just comes out like a metallic milkshake of metal. And I'm assuming, I still have the transmission in the corner, but I'm assuming all of the gears inside of it are just non-existent because they had turned into a milkshake. So I was like, well, pretty confident that was my problem. So go over this transmission, make sure everything's good, because I've not had this car or this transmission in my possession for probably a year and a half now. Everything looked fine, flushed it just to be safe, put fresh fluid in it. I run Redline MT90 and all my stuff. Everything looked good. I had to put a new speed sensor on it because that one was broke. We broke it when we pulled it out because we wasn't really trying to be careful with it because he was getting rid of the whole thing anyway. He wasn't keeping any of it. all that was good. I figured out what parts I was going to use. I ended up using the used ACT lightweight flywheel that I had. I reused the ACT bolts, which you're not supposed to do, but again, this car is bone stock and they were never ran in that other car, so they had been torqued down one time and never used. And this car does not make an insane amount of horsepower. It doesn't get beat on. It'll be fine. Use that. Use the throwout bearing I already had for it, the OEM one, the clutch fork that was already in it, basically everything except for the clutch itself, because it had a bunch of heat checks on it and it was a little sketchy. So I had an ACT 2600 over there that was in better shape. It wasn't new, but it was in better shape. Threw it in here. Threw it all back together. Took about another day, so in say 2 days we had it on the road. From the point we'd started working on it, 2 days, had it on the road, and I drove it around the block, and it was running and driving seemingly fine for around $1,100 in total. It ran kind of rough, but after we got the old gas burned out of it, refilled the tank with fresh gas, it smoothed out, it was fine. I had to play with the idle and stuff like that. It was, somebody had cranked the idle set screw all the way in, so it wasn't getting any air when the throttle was closed. Stuff like that. But that was it. $1,100 front wheel drive turbo car on the road, seemingly no real issues with the car. Just nitpicky stuff from setting. And I drove it. I went and got it tagged and everything, and then I drove it like that for a while. I put a spare the set of wheels off of my red car on it because it broke down in between all this, and it's still broken. Put those wheels on here, and I bought a set of BC Racing extreme low coilovers for it, because I decided that I wanted to lower it as much as humanly possible and just wheels, tires, drive it around. So that's what I did. And I drove it like that for a while because I assumed at any given point with the mileage that was on it, it was going to crap out on me. It was too good to be true that I have this running and driving daily turbo 2G with seemingly no problems other than it has high mileage for $1,100 with a clean, clear title. The guy with the title backtrack, he called me up the next day after he got the title and said, "Hey, where you at right now?" I said, "Well, ironically, I was at Walmart again, where this all started." He said, "You gonna be there for a minute?" He said, "I'm coming. I'm about 15 minutes away." He said, "I'll just meet you there and give you this title. You can sign it. Good to go." I said, "Yeah, sure." So he texted me, "Hey, I'm here where you at." I told him where I was at the store. He brought it in there to me, and sure enough, he had went and done exactly what he said he would do, and I had a clean, clear title for this car. Nothing wrong with it. I guess he just simply lost the title. So that was all good to go, and fast forward back to where we're at. I drive it around. I drove it like an hour and a half away, one way, a couple times to some car meets and back. No problems. I mean, I put a couple thousand miles on the car. Didn't have a single hiccup. And so then I start kind of getting more serious about painting it, stuff like that, trying to make it look nice, because I start feeling like it's not going to blow up on me at any moment or leave me stranded and me have to park it for a year and a half or whatever. So I start the process. It had a bunch of door dings, nothing major. One side had been side swapped, I noticed after I got sanding on it. It was full of Bondo, but for what I have in this car, it's straight. It's probably been that way for God knows how long. It's been fine. It was that way long enough for the paint on top of it to start flaking off and not have any problems with the body filler. So I was fine with that. Got all the clear that was peeling off and base that had let go and stuff sanded down. Fixed a bunch of door dings, just little nitpicky shit. Got it primed and ready to tear down and paint. That was when I swapped it over to a Talon, and the reason I did that is because one of the lower door trims, the door molding at the bottom of the door, was broken, and I mean broken. It was really brittle, and it was like broken half when I bought the car. So I just figured I'd replace it, get another one, no problem. I've never had a 2GA car. All mine I've had a 2GA car, but I swapped it to a 2GB. 2GB body parts are way easier to find. So I look and I look and I look and I look, and I cannot for the life of me find this door molding to replace it with. But ironically, I had an entire set of the 95, 96 Eagle Talon twisty side skirts. Whole set, nothing wrong with it, which are hard to find, but I somehow had an entire set just sitting in the corner of my garage off of a car that I had parted out. So I make the split-second decision, screw this, I can't find this part, I'll just swap it over to a Talon, be done with it, and get this thing painted. But I wanted to keep it 2GA for once. The convertible look, to me, the 2GA bumpers fit it better instead of the overly aggressive 2GB bumpers, because the convertible is not very aggressive looking anyway. It looks like a bloated Miata. But anyway, found the front and back bumpers really easy, actually. Again, ironically enough, because the Talon stuff is normally harder to find, found them super easy. I had a damn near perfect set of 2GA headlights. So I used them. I took all of them apart, painted the insides black, because I don't like the solid chrome headlights. That's one reason why I like the 2GBs better from the front. It's not just because of the bumper, but did that. They come out good. They don't leak, shockingly. I figured they would. And then come the back, because the rear end is actually Talon swap too. It's not just a Talon front bumper. I done the tail lights, everything. When you do that, you have to drill out a bunch of spot welds. You literally have to move the structure that the bumpers bolt to on the car. It's not super complicated, but it's not easy. You've kind of got to be careful what you're doing. Otherwise the bumper won't fit, or it'll be all wonky looking, you've got to kind of watch what you're doing. So I'd done it a couple times in the past, so I kind of knew what to do. So I got it all swapped over to a Talon. Got the side skirts and stuff put on. Still hadn't had it painted. I drove it around like that for a little while. I got my suspension dialed in how I wanted it to set. I bought these wheels for it because I wanted a set of just ungodly, complex, over-the-top wheels, but I still don't have a ton of money, so they're just affordable wheels that look decent, in my opinion. I got my fitment and stuff dialed in how I wanted it. Had to do a couple of adjustable suspension parts to correct the camber from lowering it down to this point, stuff like that. Got all that dialed in, and I had it setting exactly how I wanted this car to look. We took the wing off of the back too. I had a low-rise wing on it, the two pieces on the quarters and the one on the trunk, because it bugged me to have the wing from an Eclipse, but it'd be a Talon from the back. It just bugged me. Couldn't deal with it. And the side profile of the car with the top down looked weird, because it come up and down, and then it flat, and then up again, and then down. It just looked weird. So took all that off. I had a buddy weld up all of the holes and everything. Was really careful not to warp it or anything like that, which is very complicated because that trunk is thin. Then I done the body work on them, ground them down, all that, got it ready to paint. So it doesn't have a wing either. So get all that done, get all the body work as done as I'm willing to get it. Pulled the fenders and quarter panels and rolled them, and then rolled them some more, pulled them some more. It was a lot. And the back is still not perfect because I just honestly got tired of doing body work on this car. I got tired of it being 50 different shades of primer. I was starting to kind of lose sight of why I was doing all this, and I wanted to get it painted. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty decent. I did all of the work on the car. I did all of the body work. I did all of the prime work. I did all of the prep work, all the blocking, I painted it myself in a shop, no less, with not the correct tools to do that with. I wet sanded it down and buffed it myself. Everything on this I've done myself, with the exception of a handful of things, like welding the trunk, the holes for the spoiler on the trunk, because I have no idea how to weld, nor do I have a welder. I think it's pretty good for what it is. But get all that done, comes time to paint the car. I paint the car, tear it all apart, paint the car, let it set for a couple days, and then start wet sanding and buffing, and then I reassemble the car, put it all back together. Because it was everything that needed to come off was took off. It was not a tape it up, hope it sticks, paint over everything. I actually somewhat tried to do it as correctly as I had the tools to do. And got it all put back together, and I've drove it on road trips since then. In October, we went to Slammed Enough in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, it was about a 4.5 hour-ish drive, give or take, one way. Drove it all the way up there. Only problem we had was a thermostat got stuck shut on the side of the highway. It got really hot. I thought I blew a head gasket, but the oil was clean, the coolant was clean. We realized the thermostat was stuck. We took it out on the side of the highway, deleted it on the side of the highway because we were actually in the middle of a traffic jam when this happened. There was no leaving to get parts. We actually tried, but it turned into a whole ordeal. So we just deleted the thermostat on the side of the highway. Put it all back together, nothing leaked. The car was cool, it was running good. Coolant was clean, the oil was clean, it was running fine. Somehow it did not hurt anything, even though it overheated bad. Like the head was like 360 something degrees bad. But we drove it the rest of the way up there. Drove it around up there for a little over a week, and just stop and go traffic, and drove it to car meets up there and just all kinds of stuff. And then turned around and drove it back home. Didn't have no problems on the way home. Everything was fine. I daily this car. Still haven't had any problems really out of it. I mean, nothing. The only problems I've had is like busting oil pans and stuff like that, but that's my fault. Can't really blame the car for that. But that's it. I've drove it everywhere. I had a problem out of it, and I've put about, I'm gonna say about 14,000 miles on it since I bought it. And it was, like I said, it was getting ready to be hauled to the junkyard and got rid of over a locked up transmission. That's all that was wrong with the car. And we had it went from it's fixing to be crushed to it's on the road and driving again for about $1,100. That includes me buying the car in about 2 days. By the time I started working on it, it took about 2 days to get it on the road. It was a really quick turnaround, and you cannot go buy a running driving turbo 2G for $1,100. It just doesn't happen. So it was just all sheer chance. I got really lucky, and it's just a weird series of events that led to this car literally falling in my lap versus going to the junkyard and turned into a soda can, never to be seen again. Just kind of a cool story. And there is absolutely nothing done to this thing. I mean, it is as stock as it gets. Other than when I got it, this is how it was when I bought it. That's actually the same battery even that was in here. It's got a K&N filter somebody had put on it, and this spark plug cover and this oil cap. That is it. This car was bone stock. The clutch that I took out of it was actually the OEM clutch from 1996 with almost 200,000 miles on it. The heat shield and everything was still there. I took the heat shield off just because I started putting stickers on it. It is really aggressive as far as stance wise, but that is what I wanted. I wanted a stereotypical, this car is impractically low to drive type look. I've always thought one of these would look really good just dumped on the pavement, and I figured for $1,100, why not? The car, it had no rust on it. I mean, it was a clean shell. The worst part is the mileage, and again, the interior. It's dirty right now. I never clean my interior, but I got all the funk out of it, and you can actually breathe in here. It's dusty and stuff and all that, but apart from the seats, the way it sits right now, you could put a set of seats in here and it would be okay. It would be acceptable. I just haven't found a set of seats yet. I might put aftermarket ones in the future. I don't know. It's not really a big concern for me. But like I said, it is the full Talon conversion, front, back. All the lights function like they should. The turn signals are a little fast, mostly because I didn't want to put a resistor in it because I'm lazy and I hate wiring. But they do function like they should. You hit the brakes, the brake lights come on. You hit the turn signals, the amber turn signals flash. You turn your running lights on, the other brake light comes on. The third brake light works as it should. It's pretty good. And again, it is all stock. The exhaust is stock all the way to the cat, and then it is two different exhausts that are sort of cobbled together because I wanted to run the old school thermal R&D tip. I actually had that exhaust laying around, but somebody had already butchered it up, so it wasn't as easy as just bolting it on this car. So I had to use a section of exhaust from another car, and that's connected to the factory exhaust from the cat forward. So it's a weird deal. It's not great. It's not how you do that, but it's fine for this car. Like I said, the paint, it's pretty good. All these trim pieces and stuff, I painted all them black and everything. I mean, that's the only thing that didn't come out is the windshield didn't come out, and that's really about it. I mean, everything else was took completely apart, and I will put some of those pictures and stuff at the end of this video. But it starts right up, runs, drives good. There's nothing wrong with this car, and I have zero intentions of doing anything different to this car other than driving it as is. You can see the miles. It is in fact a turbo car. Obviously you can see the motor, but Currently at 214, 390. So it's a lot of miles, but it runs completely fine. Still stock turbo. There's literally nothing other than the transmission and the clutch and stuff that I put in this car has been messed with ever. And what I've done to the exhaust and the coilovers, but everything up here is a true 214,000 miles from 1996. But it's just kind of cool to see where this started, where it's at now, and the story behind it's a little different than just, yeah, I seen this car on Marketplace, I went and bought it, you know, type thing. But I've got a bunch of other vehicles too, Eclipses, DSMs in particular, and I will do another video like this on them potentially in the future. One is a built big turbo car that's around 500 horsepower. One is just the first one I bought. I've had it for probably 10 years at this point. Nothing special, it's just the story behind it's kind of cool. And then I've got another 98 Talon that is a non-turbo car, but again, the story behind how I ended up with that's kind of cool, kind of different. It was, again, it's fixing to be hauled off and scrapped type story, and I bought it, brought it back, everything like that. It currently needs a water pump, but it otherwise is fine. I'm just don't have the time to put the water pump in it, more or less. But yeah.